Yes, yes, sir.
Yes.
It is visible.
Yeah. Shall we go ahead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The topic which is given to me is top 10 tips to boost and optimize LinkedIn profile to find jobs. So let's get into that entire context of LinkedIn and then we'll walk you through. So in this particular session, you will be getting to know about 5 reasons students or job seekers should be on LinkedIn. Second will be on how to create your LinkedIn profile and mistakes to avoid. Third will be how to use LinkedIn to network. Fourth will be how to use LinkedIn to find jobs and internships. So before we get into that, I'll show you some interesting LinkedIn facts, which many of you, even if you Google it, you will understand how magnanimous is this usage of it. Uh, First one is LinkedIn photo. Photo wise, it increases up to 11% of your views when you use a particular photo. Because a lot of people, when they start LinkedIn, they think that it is a Facebook or Instagram and be it very casual. But this is a site where we are showcasing ourselves professionally. So professional photo is a mandatory for this particular LinkedIn platform. The another interesting fact is 1 out of 3 professionals on this planet are on LinkedIn. So that means the entire population throughout the country, throughout the world, almost everybody are in this platform. It is up to us how we are projecting ourselves, how we are connecting to maximize the benefits. Third one is the company page with the most engaged following. Company page in the sense startups and entrepreneurs and a lot of corporates have websites, but still this company page, LinkedIn company page is used to get leads and get business, getting into a conversation with the prospects, all that is happening there. 200 conversations per minute occurring in LinkedIn groups. So LinkedIn groups is again most prominent and most happening place where all the career related, business related stuff happening there. 41 percentage of LinkedIn visits via mobile because mobile is the mandatory usage which we are doing on a day-to-day basis. So most of the time people are viewing through mobile. The most important interesting factor is 1 in 20 LinkedIn profiles belong to recruiters. That means even if you have 500 connections, almost 25 to 30% will be recruiters because those are the people who are using LinkedIn to the maximum level. So as I said, 87% of recruiters use LinkedIn to check candidates apart from Facebook or Twitter because it's the most happening place. So projection of ourselves, our profile should be at the highest order. Most importantly, LinkedIn is a very trusted source of information where this particular ranking from Business Insider Intelligence, last 3 years, LinkedIn is the #1 platform for trusted source of information. Like in social media, if you see lot of content, lot of gossiping, lot of information and opinions is being shared across the platforms. But only LinkedIn is the platform where you can find trusted source, be it hiring or be it career, be it jobs, be it business scenario. This is the platform where you can get trusted information. So you can be rest assured of the content which is available there. So here the audience, if you could see, they come with a professional intention. I'm sorry. They come with a very professional intention. So people spend time on other networks, but they invest time on LinkedIn. That is how it has been worked out. 79% of B2B marketers believe social media is an effective marketing channel. And 80% of B2B leads come from LinkedIn. So that much of information, that much of potential is there by LinkedIn. So now we are getting into this particular topic of 5 reasons students or job seekers should be on LinkedIn? Let's see one by one. The number one fact is LinkedIn helps you establish an online presence. Unlike Facebook, unlike Instagram, where you're too much casual or too much content is casual, here is one platform where you can be very, very professional. You need not to be online in order to connect with potential employers, because once you create your page, it is 24/7, it will start working, because recruiters, hiring managers, employers, they start looking for people for your own company, for their business, all that. LinkedIn is an easy way to establish an internet presence that people can see when they search for your name in Google or want to connect with you after a networking event. So as and when you network with professional people, obviously they'll ask one particular question, or try searching your name in Google, and the presence of your social media first is being projected by LinkedIn. Even if you don't have any website or any other links, if you have presence in LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile will be showcased in your Google search. So your LinkedIn profile is a social media account you want potential employers to find when they search for you. The job prospect is something two ways. One is you chase the recruiters and employers and companies. The other way around, they are also searching for job seekers and experts who can solve their business issues. So when they are starting to search, they start using LinkedIn and then look for potential candidates to fix their issues. That's how it works. So when I search for my name in my in Google account, this is how it showcases. Like, GS Kumar Career Coach, if I mention, apart from my website and Quora and other related stuff, LinkedIn pops up in a better way, because that much of potential SEO, all that happens via LinkedIn, which is even showcasing and dominating my website. Number two, LinkedIn can supplement or even replace your resume. So many employees still want a PDF copy of your resume, but plenty are also happy to use your LinkedIn profile. Because in LinkedIn, you fill up all the details, right? From your current title, summary, work experience, internship, endorsements, testimonials, everything has been filled. So that will also act as a resume, because there is an option where people can download your PDF copy. So maybe I'll show you that particular aspect later. But seriously, you can give information as if it is your resume. So that much of seriousness has to happen in your LinkedIn profile. And even they don't want more employees will likely to still review your LinkedIn profile to get a broader picture of your experience, professionalism, and skills. Even if your LinkedIn profile is not showcasing as per your resume, they will still try and dig out your information through LinkedIn, because there you're not faking anything. There you're not projecting something different. It is a very form filling kind of an activity where you have uploaded your details, but still people would like to dig out information on whether you are passionate about particular domain skills, or how is your engagement level. All that they'll try to gauge it apart from your resume content. Third one is you can use LinkedIn to apply for jobs. Some employees now go a step further than asking for your LinkedIn profile in place of your resume, and require you to use LinkedIn to apply for the job. So now it's a fast-paced environment. So even without even resume, you can use your LinkedIn profile to start applying for jobs, because all the information are fed there. That's how they want to gauge your information and then try to accommodate in their respective jobs. So because of this reality, you must ensure you have a very quality LinkedIn profile ready to go before you need to apply for a job. So if you are preparing for an internship or job, make sure that you are serious about your LinkedIn. profile, and top to bottom, it should be at the highest level of impression created. All right. Fourth one is LinkedIn lets you research prospective employers. So employers may be using LinkedIn to learn more about you, but you can also turn the tables and use LinkedIn to research them. So usually recruiters, hiring managers, and startups are searching for your profiles, but still you can also look at their company page, their information, the recruiter's LinkedIn profile, all that to understand and gauge the information about the particular company. Even if you are going for an interview, you can just look into that company page and recruiter's background so that you understand whom you are meeting, and that will be helpful when you are getting into a conversation during an interview. So some companies are better about updating their LinkedIn pages than their official website. So official website is something purely towards business, services, testimonials, all that kind of stuff. But here in LinkedIn company page, it is purely on very specific, maybe about your current upcoming accomplishments or newspaper advertisements or jobs, whatever it is a pure specifically towards career, jobs, or business. So this I said, you can learn more about people who will be interviewing you or hiring you. You will get to know more about their profile via LinkedIn. Most importantly, LinkedIn helps you connect with your alumni from your college. So finally, you should be on LinkedIn in order to connect with the vast network of people you already have something in common with. Because commonality helps us a lot in terms of networking and connecting. So if you are naming your college name or university name and then connecting to your alumni, so they will be happy to help you in terms of job prospects or internship or stuff like that, because you have the common emotional element that you are from the same college or school. So that will help you in connecting with people rather than connecting with some third person whom you are unfamiliar. So under alumni who are far more seniors in their careers or even on their own companies, alumni who would love to give career advice to a student like you, because students and frontline executives, they are all, they also got some experience on how they entered from the academic to industry and jobs and all that. They know the struggle. So that way they will also love to help you if you are getting in touch with them. So usually these people are difficult to reach. Maybe they will be at a HR manager level or recruiter at various organizations or founder of a startup, all that. To reach them, it's a very, very difficult issue. But if you mention you're an alumni and they want to connect with you, it becomes easy. The connectivity becomes easier there. So I'm now moving on to the next particular topic, how to create your LinkedIn profile. So number one factor, crucial factor, is use a very professional picture. The picture is the first impression people will have you about your LinkedIn profile. And the only thing worse than no picture is a bad picture. As I said, time and again, it is not an Instagram, it is not a Facebook. So you need to have a professional photo shoot, but make sure that you avoid the following things in your LinkedIn profile picture. Number one, inappropriate attire, like maybe t-shirts or something which is irrelevant, which is too casual. Very poor quality photo, which captured in mobiles or something else. Poorly cropped photo, outdated photo. These are all elements which is projecting you as a very poor professional in terms of projecting you with the different employers, because you're projecting yourself as a skilled professional and expert professional in a particular domain. So if you do all these aspects, then the first impression itself, it's very, very bad. And the connection and the further conversation may not even happen. So write your intro. So only you have the profile picture, you can get to work creating your profile. You need not worry about it being 100% complete, as you run the risk of adding too much of information and it will be overwhelming. So people see when they first go to your profile page. So title and profile photo is the one thing that they first watch and see whenever you are commenting or logging into your profile. So you should spend the majority of your initial setup time working on this particular section. So this is how it looks like. The entire section you can edit here as per the red lined information. You can edit the major information about the name, photo, cover page, titles, locations, all that. Please spend time. It is worth spending time, and because it is you're projecting yourself as an expert. So spending time here, it is much of worth. So if you click that, you will get the following information where I have already filled the information, because mine is purely into business kind of a page. So I have included all the keywords which a potential job seeker or employer will be looking for. So my current designation and company, second, the kind of various roles and performing, and a call to action. So somebody, if he is interested in exploring the coaching sessions, he can mail his CV to me. So that is the kind of call to action button I have kept there. So by default, you will get this current position, because whatever you are filling there, it will be opted as a current position. So when you even flow down, you'll just see the education, country, locations, industry especially, and contact information, where you can fill all the details: websites, phone, email, Twitter, instant messenger, birthday, everything. So these are all very self-explanatory: first name and last name, where whatever name you have, you can just make it headline. So this is something which is act as a keyword placement area. So make sure your designation and other skills is mentioned properly there, as I mentioned. So if you are a student, what should you do? Like, for example, let's say you're a student by default, LinkedIn might write something like student at Mumbai University. So that's how it automatically pop up. But you should go and edit whatever is your current working profile. If you are working as an intern and working for a company, but you are a student, you can mention as intern at XYZ company. So current position, it is allows you to show people where you currently work and what you do there. So it is completely like a work experience section where you have to explain your uh, current company details, what you do, what is your responsibilities there, all that. Even if you are doing internship, you can explain about the company, explain what you are doing so that people can understand what you do. But if you're a student and exploring jobs or something, or just turned into one intern, you can just click that add new position and then add your details. So it will be filled there. So this is how it looks like: title, employment type, company name, location, and start month and end month. That's how it works. So title, when you type, it will pop up with automatic list of designation, where you have to use that particular designation if it is matching to you. Employment type will be something full-time or part-time or self-employed, everything. Whatever comes into employment category, you can just mention there. And company details, obvious, like whatever company, whichever company you're working, you just mention there. Be very specific to location, because it has a list of location where only majority city and town listings will be there. So micro level mini cities and all other towns will not be listed. You make sure you have a location where it is a metro city or a close town kind of an area. So that is what. So filling out this information is fairly straightforward. Whatever it is, whatever you are working, whatever is your KRA, all that you can just mention, and description and other aspects, you can just fill entire detail. So education, being it very obvious and mandatory, you fill all the whatever undergraduation you have done, master graduation you have done, everything you just fill according to your education details. Country, region, postal code, and locations. Simple and straightforward, whatever you are there. So industry may not be applicable to the student level, but may be applicable to the people who are currently working. So pick out the matching industry which you belong to and then add a specific details so that it helps the recruiters to find you. Because recruiters like us, we mention the company name, industry, location, all these things to find out candidates. So if you mention those information, it will be easier for a recruiter to find you. The contact info, whichever is a very, whichever mobile number you can pick, whichever is a active email ID, mention only that because they should not be in a dilemma whether to reach out to you or not. So if you are a prospective job seeker, just mention your mobile number, phone, email ID and all that so that it is easier for the recruiter to reach out to you quickly rather than, connecting and then trying to source your profile. So here is what I've told, like the other information which I've told earlier, including all the details, education and all that kind of stuff. Website, contact details, phone numbers, all that. So find out as little as much like and so this is the privacy settings where you can connect with a lot of other degree networks. By default, you will have these first degree connections. But if you want to expand your connections and all that, you can just showcase and open your privacy settings here and notify your the other connections so that your visibility becomes an enlarged version. So excellent summary is very much required because this is something acts as a cover letter for your profile. So make sure you are writing something very genuine and very straightforward. So student summary is what I have mentioned here. Give a very short description on what you do, where you study, what is your interest, specialties, everything, so that they get to know what you are doing and all that. For the summary, you just have to just click this about tab in your ad profile section. So it will open up and you can add details, whatever you have prepared as a summary, and then add the content in the summary section. So LinkedIn, usually when you log into LinkedIn and then go freshly starting with this LinkedIn page, it will automatically create a content which is auto generator. So this is needs to be edited and as per the your profile and background, you can just start putting information there. So write as a first person and use words like I, me, and my, and all that. So make it to 2000 characters. Why 2000 characters in the sense? The algorithmic requirement is about 2000 characters. So make sure you give as many information about your profile, background, skills, and passion so that you comply to the standards of LinkedIn requirement. So there are a lot of white spaces. Use it very wisely. Give a very neat picture, neat professional sentence formations, sentence corrections, all that. And then once everything is done, then you put across in the summary section. So as I said, create like a cover letter where you give information about your background, your college, your subject, all that, and then give a very specific information so that a third person who is unfamiliar about you, he should know about you after reading this LinkedIn summary. All right. So proofreading is something very, very crucial. You make a Word profile, write everything, proofread with the Grammarly tools and other stuff. And then if you're finding good, or even you can cross check with your friends or mentors or teachers to understand what is the content is communicating to others. And then you post the content there in the summary section. So here are some mistakes to avoid. Spelling of company names, because which is very crucial and critical. You are versus you are. This is something very, very common mistakes I could see in LinkedIn profile. That's how they name it. That's how they spell it. There, there, and they are, these are something. These are all the things. Most importantly, include your keywords. So like all these business days, hiring has become increasingly data driven because manual hiring is something very important, but still they believe in automation and bots. So a lot of bots is being included to try and dig out profiles based on the keywords which is used. So keywords is something your skill set, IT skill set, or your business skills or your designation that will act as a keywords. So make sure you are placing these keywords in your LinkedIn profile so that it is easier for the robots to scan and then screen your profiles. So job titles and other accomplishment sections is very, very crucial. So if your recruiter wants to see what job titles you have had or where you work, they can look at the experience section of your profile. And what you can't express in other parts of your profile is what you accomplished in the jobs you work. So use your summary to convey this information. Summary section is one part where you can display all your accomplishments, especially career accomplishments in the first section, or that you include that. Maybe you could have reduced your time in a particular project, reduce the cost saving in cost and save some money for the company, reduced effort introducing automation or something. All that is counted as a accomplishment. So you need not worry that whether you've been honored or something, but if you have saved time, cost, and effort, that is a quantifiable achievement. So make sure you draft that and then put it across in the summary page. This is how maybe lead generation, if you have done like 10% or whatever, just quantify it. Quantifying, even in resume and LinkedIn, both the things, quantifying is something recruiters like us really like and get impression. To add all your past experience, make sure you give a proper description and showcase whatever you have done in the past. It is like a proof. Like LinkedIn is mostly text based, but wherever there is a possibility, you just showcase whatever you have done in the past. Because mine is like purely into career coaching for students and professionals. So I have showcased my profile as if I mean whatever I have done in the past I have showcased because they'll quickly understand what I do and it adds to my credibility of my profile. So if you look at it, the current profile, I have given some screenshot and photos. I've uploaded my GS Kumar related counseling sessions in my photos. Rather than just mentioning career coaching and stuff like that, I'm giving a proof of what I have done in the past. So make sure you also add such kind of photos or YouTube videos or anything which can prove your work profile and skill. So that makes a lot of credibility for your profile and trust for your profile. So recruiters know that you are a college student, but so you don't need to write a LinkedIn profile that makes it sound like you have been working in business for 10 years. So you need not fake it. They know that you are a student, but still whatever you are accomplished as an intern, as a volunteer, or some projects that you just try to showcase so that uh, you will be looked as a professional. Entrepreneurial efforts which you have done, or freelance work which you have done, volunteering, all that you can include in this LinkedIn profile. So no matter what, whatever you have spent professional time, that you can include here, as simple as that. So you can use list your hard skills, especially IT people or the other business people will include all these skills. You have 50 different accommodation you have to add your skill, but make sure you add up to 10 to 15 skills, which is crucial and matching for your profile. If you are an IT profile, add your software skills like Java or .NET or testing, whatever. So those things you can add here as a technical skills. Or this is predominantly a keyword area. So whatever keywords matching to your domain or business and skill, you can add here. So claim your custom URL. This is most common factor I'm seeing because a lot of, once you enter into LinkedIn and log in to your details, LinkedIn will auto-populate your URL with some numeric aspects. This particular section where there will be automated URL, but you can click here and then customize your URL based on whatever you want to do, be it a name or be it another different designation, whatever it is, you can customize and then complete here so that it looks like a very professional profile. So here you can click here and then I made it as career coach GS Kumar so that my profile pops up when somebody is searching for a career coach. So here is how you can edit. When you start editing, if at all the name is already there, then it will show like that URL is not available and try a different URL. So you can iterate and see the most common usage or very specific to your name or anything, and then try and fix this particular URL pattern. So as I said before, these are all the other sections where even if you're a student, you can add lot many details into these sections. Volunteer experience, of course, being a student, you might be volunteering in various activities. All that you can include here. Be very specific to what is the organization, what role you have performed, for what cause, and how many months and years you have worked, and description. Explain, just like a work profile, you just include all the details so that you can showcase your volunteering experience. There is accomplishment section where there is a sub factor on projects. Obviously, when you're a student, you have lot many projects which you have done. So those projects you can include here. Languages, whatever languages you can speak, write, read, all that you can just include. Publications, if at all you are a good writer or you are a good blogger, all that information you can add. Honors and awards and other sections. So these are the other sections you can capitalize on your detailing about your career path. So updation of your profile is very, very much important. It is not that once you create it and then you sleep on it for next 15 days. No. So you have to keep updating. It is very dynamic page. So I would recommend to download the LinkedIn app and then make use of it on a daily basis so that your profile is an active profile rather than a very passive profile. So now how to use LinkedIn to network. So being professional is one of the major crucial role because that is the first impression. So your photo, your cover page, your title, all that is should be very professional. To connect with as many people as possible because the more the network, the major capitalization you can use. Get recommendations and give recommendations also to people who are in your network because you already know that people and already you know certain people's work. So start giving recommendations to people whom you already know because there is a trick and hack which I'll tell you sometime later. But give recommendations to maximum people and try to get recommendations because that act as a testimonial for your work. So don't obsess over endorsements because endorsement is something which a recruiter will check and understand whether you are skilled enough, and he will also check how many people have endorsed you and for which specific skill. So that way he will understand whether you are really have done a genuine job or just faking just for a sake of it. Okay. And join and contribute to relevant groups. Like if you are a job seeker or looking for internship, there are a lot many groups where large number of people are already available discussing on the same subject. So if you have to go to the community and add network, you start searching for group names and then add your profile there so that you will get into more number of people. So up to 50 groups you can add in LinkedIn. So that is magnanimous. So each group will contain at least 10,000 to 15,000 to lakhs and lakhs of people. So the more network and more connection to go, you go into group and active in your groups, that will make more profile views and more connections. So how to use LinkedIn to find jobs and internships. So when you have the home page, you will have the section of jobs where if you click, this is the page it will appear. So search for title, skill or company and then give a particular location to search for jobs. So it will give an entire list of jobs available in that particular designation, title and company. So if you want more number, like you want to expand the number of opportunities and all that, you can directly go to the search column, which is available in your homepage, and mention a designation and mention a location. And you can segregate to different tabs, whether it is an entry level or senior level or full-time or part-time jobs. And most importantly, it will give you the when it has been posted. If you check but this particular third tab and then click it, you will get to know when it has been posted. So according to the freshness of job posting, you can start applying for your jobs so that you will get the first preference. All right. So searching should be, there should be a strategy for searching. It should not be like randomly you throw out your resume to various people. So segregate to these particular things. You can explore the other aspect which is mentioned in the tab, like company, either remote working or other things, LinkedIn features and all filters. So all filters, if you check, you will get all the factors which you can segregate on which particular job or company or designation you want. So accordingly, it will populate the list of job postings which are available for that particular domain. So you can reach out to very key employees. Once you start LinkedIn, you will get to know the people who are already working for that company. So you can reach out to the CEO, reach out to the HR manager, reach out to the recruiter, and then try and connect with people. So even if there is unpublished jobs, you can try out and then ask for connections. And over a conversation, you can ask for any internship or job. which can be provided, right? It is not only the published jobs which are available. Once you connect and network with people, you will also get to know what are the unpublished jobs. And through your conversation and rapport building with a particular person, authorized person in the company, you can get a job or internship. So that is the level of capitalization you have to use via LinkedIn. So create as many opportunities by LinkedIn. So what I understood from this requirement is the skills companies need most in 2020 was the top five soft skills I'm mentioning. Number one is creativity. Second one is persuasion. Third is collaboration, people collaboration. Fourth is adaptability. Fifth is emotional intelligence. So these are the five common factors which I could see during the recruitment things also, and whatever the hiring managers were communicating us in terms of understanding all that. This is what their expectation. The top hard skills of this one, you might be already knowing: blockchain, cloud computing, analytical reasoning, artificial intelligence, UX design, business analysis, affiliate marketing, sales, scientific computing, and video production. These are the top hard skills people are searching worldwide and recruiting people at various levels, right from freshers to expert level. These are the core skills which has been top searched in LinkedIn. All right. So that's the end of my presentation. So if you need of a professional help in terms of resume or interview calls or exploring jobs or even LinkedIn branding, you can just connect@gskumar.com, where I can provide a lot many information and professional help in terms of career and job prospects. So that's how it is.
Yeah, thank you.
And back to you, Ganesh. Yeah.
So we'll have a short question answer. Yeah, we'll have a question and answer round, and I have received a lot of questions. So just to get started. So Ridansh asked, how many connections is the right amount on LinkedIn?
There is no limitation in terms of connections, because as many connection is as many profitable for us. But make sure you are doing a very professional networking. It is not a Facebook where you add all the casual people, your friends and colleagues and all that. Your intention should be something professional and add people who are active. That is most crucial, right?
Okay.
At this point in time, we will be exploring for jobs and business or internship. To connect to people who are recruiters, hiring managers, startup founders, entrepreneurs, only to those people who are really professional and active in LinkedIn. Otherwise, if you keep adding your students and past students who are friends and all that, there is no use. I mean, you can showcase that you have 5,000 connections, but all the 5,000 connection, if it is going to be waste and it is of no use, then there is no productivity out of LinkedIn.
Okay. And another question is, so should you have any achievements listed on your LinkedIn profile from any previous school, like maybe 5 to 10 years back? Is there a need to put uh, information that 5 years back, or do you need to be relevant to the recent times?
It need not be recent time. It is a completely a showcase page where you want to project all the skills and capabilities. Okay. So, be it a school student or something, see, just because you are a student, you don't have much information to talk about work profile and other stuff. So, whatever available, you just start posting there, but it is not a constant factor. It is a very, very dynamic. So, once you're getting into a job and other things, you can delete that and then post what are the latest one, right?
Okay.
Just because you don't have an information, then you can put those information, but keep it dynamic. Once in 3 months or 6 months, you keep checking, keep deleting and updating your profile, and be active in your profile. That's most crucial.
Okay. And can you, if possible, someone asks if you can share a link of a profile you really like, it's very complete and everything is absolutely where it needs to be, completely optimized.
So completely optimized in the sense I can show you only my client's profile where I have optimized from the basic profile to the best version of LinkedIn. It
Okay.
is just to show only how we have modified that I can showcase. Do you want me to showcase?
Yeah, that would be good if you can just share the link in the chat box. Uh,
Okay.
we can have a look at it.
Give me a second.
Okay,
This
sir.
is one where I have modified his profile. He's a job seeker, data scientist.
Okay.
Um, his profile was very, very basic or there was no information as such. But after modification, we have modified the entire top to bottom and showcased the entire information.
Okay.
Now he has got a lot of visibility from recruiters and hiring managers and getting to interviews.
Okay. Okay. And another question is, can you go over what is the difference between a personal website and a LinkedIn profile? How should it be different? What content wise?
So website, even if you create, you have to optimize it and SEO, do a lot of SEO to get visibility, correct?
Okay.
But here in LinkedIn, you already have the database. It is already a community, major community. So you just have to create a proper profile matched to its algorithm. So once you do that and be active, your visibility becomes very, very expansive rather than website. Website, you have to post a lot of blogs and other stuff, and then you have to push the website to various people. Correct.
Okay.
But here, if you're optimizing and keeping your profile ready, people are trying to research you and then getting into your LinkedIn profile. So it is a backward work. Like website, you are pushing, but LinkedIn, you are pulling. That is the difference.
Okay. And thank you. Also, one more question we had is if you could give some example of keywords to use in your summary or in the introduction, if you could just, go over it in brief.
Keyword will be based on your target jobs. So whatever targets jobs you are thinking, that you can write it down and then use that word in the search column, top search column, and search for jobs. Okay. So if you search for jobs, they will list out what are all the various designations used for that particular job.
Okay.
Okay. So list out those different designation, 15 to 20 designations you can analyze, and that will become your keyword.
Okay.
So
Got it.
say, for example, somebody is into purchase manager. Okay. So purchase have a different designation also used in the market. Okay. Somebody will call it as a procurement manager. Somebody will call it as a sourcing manager. Okay. But the base is going to be the purchase only, right? So if you use purchase manager in the jobs column, these are all the various designations which will be used. So pick out those information and put it in your title, summary, work experience section so that when they search for this particular job, your profile is listed when they are in the search appearances. That's how it works.
Okay. And Tanay asked the question. I wanted to know what are the target points corporates look at when they see a LinkedIn profile?
Professionalism is number one, right? Second thing is the work experience has to be crystal clear on what you are doing because recruiters is not the domain experts. So they will match according to the job description, whatever they are carrying right now. So the content should match to the job posting, job description. So use a specific designation, proper designation, and give a detailed information of what responsibilities you are carrying out at this particular work profile. All right. And definitely the endorsements and recommendations plays a major crucial role. So make sure you get more recommendation for your particular skill. That's
Okay.
most crucial. Uh, so it's purely designation based algorithm. If you look at your, if you want to even try and understand how it works, there will be a dashboard below your summary where it will showcase your profile views, post views, and search appearances. Okay. So click your search appearances and dig into that. You will get a list of companies which is searching for you, list of people who are searching for you, and list of keywords used to search for you. Okay, this you can do it for yourself and understand for which keyword you are being ranked or appearing in a search. So that way you will understand who are all searching for you, and you can rework on your profile on your target job and try to modify your designation and other things so that you are visible to the recruiters.
Okay. And thank you, sir. Also, so Stuti asked, as students, we're required to put in, skills, but should we limit it to the skills that are relevant to the professional life only, or skills we want to pursue or try? And should we put out all the skills or only those relevant to the professional life?
No, relevant to professional skills is what is required, because for that only they are reaching out to you.
Okay.
Okay. But you can keep posting in the certification section and courses section on whatever you are pursuing. There is a separate column for license and certifications. So if at all you are pursuing certification, you can just include those information that you are pursuing this particular course or certification, all that. And you can keep showcasing that certification in your timeline and mention that you have completed this. I'm very happy about completing this. All that you just showcase so that other people get to know that you are doing this certification and all
Okay. Thank you, sir. Also, Sonia asked, should we post any college projects on LinkedIn, like analysis of a research paper? And if you have to post it, under which heading should you do it?
that. As I showed, there is an accomplishment section. There you can get a subsection of projects and other stuff. So click that project section and add relevant details. On those kind of description you can add and then add in your profile.
Okay.
But since you don't have anything to mention in the summary, you can add that the project experience in a short description and then post it in the summary also.
Okay. And so she has one more question. Does it leave a good impression if you keep writing articles related to a job profile? And to add on to that, it is also my question to really understand what is too much. Like, what should be your limit on if you keep on talking about your job profile or something else on LinkedIn?
You mean to say you're projecting in your timeline or where exactly?
Articles, if you keep writing articles related to your job or anything related to your job, basically. So
Hmm.
is it a good habit? And I'm sure it's a good habit, but how much is, too much? Like, does it leave a good impression if you keep on writing articles?
So keep on writing articles in the sense you should have a structured framework to post on a particular date and time. Okay, so you fix a calendar where every Wednesday I'll post there or every Friday I'll post. You make some framework. You need not be like irrelevant or unstructured. Make a very structured work where when you want to post, since you already have articulated the content and everything, you know how much content is available with you, right? Maybe 30 content, 40 content, whatever it is. So for next month, you should prepare and keep it now itself so that it works on a framework on when to post, what to post, all that. And then keep the dates and time very structured so that it is very proper and professional. There is no limit to number of postings, but still, if you make it very structured, that will look professional.
Okay, but
And
how much?
LinkedIn timeline will allow only 1300 characters in your information text, right? So if you're writing something, make it very native content. Native content in the sense there should not be any hyperlink to external sites or blogs or YouTube channels. Okay. So most of the people, they run YouTube channels and they want to try and promote their YouTube channels via LinkedIn, which is a failure concept in LinkedIn, because
Okay.
any external link is which is promoted in LinkedIn, it will devalue the whole content.
Okay.
Okay. LinkedIn doesn't want people to get out from LinkedIn. Okay. So any video, any information, if you want to post, make it native and post only in LinkedIn so that your audience review, post, comment on LinkedIn. That is the crucial factor.
Okay. And so Adil asked, like, what matter should you include in your message when you're sending out a connection request to someone? What type of matter?
It should provoke them to open the messages, because if you're connecting to the hiring managers, recruiters, and founders and all that, they already have lot many messages like this connection request and all that, right? So the first line should be little more impressive rather than very normal connection or very random connection.
Can you
When
give
you're
an
sending
Can you give an
when
example?
you're sending a request, you will get a pop-up window where you explain a message about yourself. Correct. So if you are opening a message, don't introduce yourself as I'm this person, I'm from this company. All that, it is immaterial. Otherwise you just showcase that I read your article. Your profile is very impressive. The first line is always viewable. So if at all they read like that, they'll be provoked to open that message and then try to connect. You know, so
Okay.
that way you start with greeting something like I read your article, or I saw your profile in this way, something like that. You provoke them to open and then make a connection request.
Okay. And do you have any sample recommendation for LinkedIn, the recommendation format in which you can either give a recommendation or receive a recommendation?
There is a site which is automatically generates content for LinkedIn recommendation. All right. So that I will send you. Maybe where you have to fill the form like the name, background, other things, and once you click generate, it will generate a recommendation content, testimonial
Okay. Can you just
content.
put the
Yeah,
link when possible in the chat box
yeah.
for the recommendation? Uh, so Kirti asked, should the bio be written in third person or first person?
It matters on see who is you viewing your profile. So he must understand and then take a call. Be it a third person, or be it an individual, it is up to your focus or goals from LinkedIn. That is so, right? If you have a purpose of job and other things, you have to project your skills and other steps. Say like writing your cover letter, it should be like the summary should be like a covering letter. So that way is what you have to write.
Okay, so usually we should prefer third person if we're applying for jobs.
Yeah.
Okay. And one more question we have is, how does one make his or her post viewed by many people? So it's if it's one of the first posts, for you, and you have less than 500 connections. So how do you attract more comments and generate more activity for that post?
Two ways. One way is using popular hashtags, right? So hashtags in LinkedIn works in a very predominant and works magnanimously, because each hashtag has lakhs and lakhs of followers. So choose hashtag which has most number of followers and include in your content, so that your text information or the messages will be viewed by more number of people. Right? Say for example, hashtag India is the most popular and most used hashtag in LinkedIn. Okay, so where there are millions of people following that particular hashtag. Okay, so likewise, whenever you are using that hashtag, click that hashtag and see how many followers are already there for that particular hashtag. So use
Okay.
hashtag which has more large number of followers, so that at least 10% of those people are viewing. Then your text become more popular, information become more popular. Number one. Number two, post content which is provoking the viewers to comment. Okay, it can be like a question, it can be like generating some engagement in your post, or that way it should be like that format, right? People are using polls to generate things, or people are using a lot of gif files to connect, right? Or people are asking questions. Anything which is provoking engagement, clicking or commenting, is what the most preferred usage of LinkedIn.
Okay. And one question, very crucial question is it important to have a premium account, LinkedIn premium account when you're seeking for a job? It's
Not
important.
really. Not really. I would not recommend that. As long as you have a optimized profile and professional profile, and you know how to connect with people, how to engage, all that, LinkedIn Premium is not at all required.
Okay. Okay. And I think we're almost out of time, but one last question is what sort of skills can be used uh, for a CA in LinkedIn besides, Annalise asked, besides the universal MS Office and PowerPoint?
Sorry, come again. I'm not getting
What
it.
sort of skills can be used for a chartered accountant on LinkedIn besides the universal Microsoft Office, PowerPoint, and maybe some other accounting software?
No, skills in the sense, when you go to the endorsement section and click the information, chartered account or related finance related stuff, it will automatically pop up a lot of keywords related to chartered accountant. Okay, mention those listings alone. That itself is very, very sufficient.
Okay.
Okay. Second thing is title and designation column is the crucial column where the keyword acts as a basic key skills for the recruiter. Okay. So chartered accountant, FP and A, and finance manager, all that acts as a keyword, right? And as I said before, just dig out the job postings, whatever they are mentioning. So whatever designation has been used, those designation you try and accommodate in your title and designation column, so that you will be popped up when they are searching for it.
Okay. And yeah, I think, sir, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining. And I hope all of you guys really liked the talk and got to learn something out of it. And thank you for coming. So,
Thank you, Ganesh, for this opportunity and time. We'll connect sometime later. Yeah,
okay, sure.
thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.